Moderator this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay.
Is this working?
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit. I'll try to speak up a little bit louder. First of all, I welcome you also from Tuscola County Republican Party. I'm glad to see the people that have come here today and to welcome all our wonderful people running. First of all, I'd like all the veterans to please stand up that have served our country, and please let's honor them with a warm welcome. I have to tell everybody, our veterans are 1% of the population that serve this country. That's why we always need to honor them. Can we also stand and say a pledge of allegiance to our flag, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And leading us in an opening prayer will be Suzanne Hall.
Good morning. All right. We just invoked the Lord in our pledge, which is very wise of us. And I want to thank all of the candidates running for office. I think that is an amazing free gift of your time and talents and money as well. And we thank you and wish you well. Anytime we have some major work in our lives or decisions to make, we go to the Lord because He is the one, He is the source of wisdom. So I'd just like to share a couple verses before we pray. This is from, is this on? Okay. This is from Proverbs. The word says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, and from His mouth come knowledge and understanding. He holds victory in store for the upright. He's a shield to those who walk is blameless. For He guards the course of the just and protects the way of His faithful ones." That is a promise that He is our source of wisdom, and certainly our leaders need wisdom. And just another short verse from Colossians. "See to it, leaders, that no one takes you captive through hallowed and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of this world rather than on the Messiah, Christ." So let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come in the name of Jesus and welcome you in our midst. Lord, we do seek your wisdom. And we ask that you would guide these candidates in all wisdom and truth. We ask your favor upon them. And we know, Father, that you rule over these elections. And so we entrust these candidates to you and depend on you to lead us into the right course for our community and our state and our country. We thank you, Father, for this wonderful land. And we ask that you would forgive us for failing you over the years. But now, Lord, we ask for your forgiveness and your favor on this nation. Bring us back, Lord, to you. And we pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, first I'd like to introduce any elected officials that we have here. I do see Representative Kevin Daly from here. Oh, and we have our state senator Mike Green. He just walked in also. I'd like to say welcome, glad to have you. I would also like to make an official introduction of our candidates that are here today. Starting down at the, oh, Dan, it's a little mixed up. Dan Grimshaw is on the end. We have Curtis Bomer. We have Dr. Ned Canfield. We have Kurt Damrow. We have Marlene Joe. We have Tom Wassa, and we have Jim Wenzel. Welcome, and I appreciate all of you trying to do something for our county.
I haven't seen, is Alan Hardwick here this morning from the 5th Congressional, the candidate for the 5th Congressional District? I didn't see him. I just want to also introduce our chairman from Tuscola County, Mike Slocum, in the back. He's from the Vassar area, and our secretary, Mr. Jones. And then we have a number of members of our executive committee here, Luke Smallwood, John Johnson.
I did want to mention that back here on this table, we have the flyers for the Lincoln Day dinner, which is June 13th. We have program ad sheets. We're selling ads in the program. The program is going to be printed by Heritage Press, which is the same company that prints the advertiser. So here's feel free to have, I've got plenty of copies of the program ad sheet, which if any of you would like to place an ad, or if you are familiar with business, have an acquaintance or relationship with a business that would like to place an ad, I would certainly encourage you to do that. That would be terrific. And then we also have applications for membership in the Tuscola County Party. And then we also have back here, there's a couple of nominating petitions as well, and we also have tickets for the Lincoln Day dinner, which is June 13th, if you haven't already acquired yours. Thanks.
Okay, we'll get right to it. We're going to allow an introduction by all of our candidates. Please limit it to about 5 minutes so we have enough time for people to ask questions. Say whatever you'd like to say to the audience. We'll start first with Curtis Bomer.
Good morning. I'm Curtis Bomer. I'm running for state representative, and I would appreciate your vote. So let's get that out of the way first. I'm a lifelong resident of the district, raised here in Tuscola County, and I've worked my entire adult life over in Huron County. I'm from Harbor Beach. I'm a speech and language pathologist for the Huron Intermediate School District. And I'm running because I believe that we need to continue moving Michigan forward, and that we need to continue to make sure the government becomes more and more efficient. And that would be my goal when I'm in Lansing, is to work to make the government more efficient and represent each and every one of us in the district much better than what we have been. I think that we need to send a representative with certain qualities to Lansing. I think we need to send a representative that first of all believes in integrity and will do, or at least try to do, what they say they will. And I think they need to have respect for all of us. I think for a long time we've not had that in Lansing, where our representatives and our senators, to a large degree, mostly from the other party, have not respected all of the opinions of the citizens in the district. And I think we need to have someone who will listen to all of the opinions, whether they agree with them or not, and treat people with respect. I think we need someone who's going to be there to provide service to the district, someone who's devoted their life to service and helping people. And that is something that I certainly feel that I've done. I work with families all across Huron County and with children who have disabilities. And my goal in life has been to make life better for them. I also believe we need to send someone that believes in excellence and that will strive for excellence in everything that they do. And that's what I do. Oftentimes I fail at meeting my own mark because excellence is a tough quality to make. But it's a constant striving for that mark. I think that's what we need to do. We need an excellent government in Lansing because this is an excellent state and an excellent district. And thank you.
Okay, next we have Dr. Ned Canfield.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. My name is Dr. Edward James Canfield. Everybody calls me Ned, so I've kind of given into that and just made that part of the whole thing. I'm a lifetime Michigan resident. I was raised in Fowlerville, Michigan, which is much the same size as Vassar or any other small town in rural Michigan. My parents traditionally have been farmers, and I have a very small farm where I raise grass-fed beef in Sebring. My wife and I are both physicians, trained at Michigan State University. I've been practicing, again, with my partner and my wife in Sebring for the better part of 20 years. I left that practice just a little while ago, about a year and a half ago, and am now practicing in Cairo 2 days a week, so that I may concentrate more on the run for office. I get asked all the time, why would I not practice medicine and run for state office? I think that it's very important for us to have intelligent, hardworking individuals in the state house. I think that we also need to bring a perspective to that house as well. Healthcare is a huge issue in the state of Michigan. Every one of us in this room either has insurance or does not have insurance, or has healthcare issues or does not have healthcare issues. I've taken care of the people of Huron and Tuscola County for the last 20 years. I've seen people come in without health insurance and taken care of them. I've had people who have been well suited. I know what the issues are. I know what the problems are. I'm a current member of the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan Board of Trustees, so I see their perspective on things, and I bring the rural primary care perspective to that body as well, which often doesn't have that information. So oftentimes what happens in the state legislature and in government bodies altogether is if they don't understand how things work, you know, somebody may be an educator, somebody may be a factory worker, a farmer, or something else. If they don't understand what happens in medicine and we don't tell them, then they can't help us. So I think that that's something that I bring to the table. I also want my children to see life is not always about making a lot of money. That service is very important, and both my wife and I have worked in our community to make sure that we do that. I'm also a veteran of the Navy. I didn't do anything special in my 5 years while I was in the Navy, but I did serve. I was a hospital corpsman. I also have 4 children, 3 of whom were in college the first term this year, which I had to pay the bill for. I think we have some big issues related to education, how we train our children. I think that we should be educating our children out of high school to be ready to go to work so they can help work themselves through school so they don't become indentured servants to student loans, which we see quite often. I've lived through that with both Cheryl and I having to pay our student loans for medical school. So I think that there are many things that I can bring to the table. I would like that opportunity, and I am running as a Republican candidate this time. And I would like you to consider voting for me on August 5th in the general election. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Kurt Damrow.
Good morning. We might want to pass the mic around and have everybody introduce themselves that are here today, other than the candidates. But it's so nice to have everyone here this morning. This is going to be a busy race. As you can see, you've got a lot of very good people that said they want to take a shot at this race. Having been there in the 84th District and the State House, we did a lot of reform in 2011 and 2012. It was a very difficult job. It was a lot of work by the House and the Senate members. It was, some people considered it a dangerous job at times. And it did get a little bit crazy down in Lansing as we worked on reform. We worked on reform for the teacher tenure laws. We worked on reform with the right to work. We did a lot of work with right to life issues. And a lot of things have been done in 2011, 2012, but we have a lot of work to do yet. My focus isn't on the state of Michigan. My focus is on the people of Huron and Tuscola County. The biggest thing we need up here right now is jobs, jobs, and more jobs. And we have to focus on that. Government can't create jobs, but government can create the atmosphere for jobs to come to an area. And that has been my focus. It's even been my focus the past year and a half not being in office. So we have that opportunity to do so. When we look at what the adjusted gross income, what happened during the Granholm administration, to Tuscola County and to Huron County having the second largest loss of population behind the city of Detroit. Watching what happened to the adjusted gross income, Huron County was bad, Tuscola County was overwhelming, losing over $50 million in adjusted gross income. That means we need jobs. We've got to have them up here. We can't wait for tomorrow. We can't wait 2 months or 6 months down the road. When this new legislative body jumps in 2015, we have to hit the ground running. We've got to hit it hard. And you need representation that knows the area, that's been here and fighting for jobs, and has the connections to make things happen, not only in Lansing for you, but happen for you in this district. So again, my focus will be on jobs. For some of you that follow me on Facebook, you know my focus is also on veterans. Right now, the state of Michigan we're still lagging behind. A few years ago, we were 53rd in the nation taking care of our veterans behind all states, Guam, DC, and Puerto Rico. And that's one thing I've been doing for the last year and a half, other than taking classes, was helping veterans. I do this on my own out of my house. We've helped dozens of veterans get their benefits, and we still will help dozens of veterans. But for the state of Michigan to leave $3 billion in unclaimed veterans benefits every year, you cannot find an industry that will bring that kind of revenue to the state of Michigan, no matter how hard you look, even with new job creation, even though right to work went into effect, and since right to work went into effect, we have 3,000 more new union jobs. So right to work did not destroy jobs in the state of Michigan. We've got a lot of work to do. I appreciate your support. I've appreciated your support in the past. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. As you know, my cell phone number is the same it's always been for the last almost 10 years. Since it first went out on about 40,000 pieces of literature in 2011. It's the same number, and I still get a lot of great calls. If there's anything that I can help you with, please give me a call at my number or just see me. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Dan Grimshaw.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. My name is Dan Grimshaw, still from 2 years ago. Not much has changed in my political views. I appreciated your support 2 years ago in the primary campaign and even in the general election. Even though I didn't come out on top, I feel that it's time to continue the effort again. I don't see a whole lot of change in the state of Michigan that we can say has been completed yet. I think we need to continue on with the programs that are going. It's about governing, and I think that we need to understand that government should be less involved in people's lives and not more. I am a conservative by belief and philosophy completely. I truly believe that we need to have limited government in every way, shape, and form that you can imagine. And that is, people are the ones that we need to focus on, not government. And we need to do what we can. Government doesn't create jobs. Government doesn't make jobs. Government shouldn't be picking winners and losers when it comes to employment. We've made huge mistakes. We're still, in my view, wasting money on the movie subsidies and other things that are going on need to be ended. It is a failure and it needs to stop. And there are things that we need to continue. I think the state needs to continue to move forward, and I want to be part of that and part of the governing and establishing where we need to go as a district. I do want to represent our entire district, not just me, not just my philosophy, but you, the people. That's what this is about. Being your representative, your mouthpiece. Not just your philosophical person, but your representative. And I hope that I can count on your support, and thank you for your support already and where we're moving forward. Thank you.
Next we have Marlene Jobe.
Thank you. My name is Marlene Jobe, and I was born and raised in Port Austin, Michigan. My family still owns a family farm. It was not a real big farm, a couple hundred acres and a few cows and chickens and those things. I moved away in 1971 to attend college. I worked my way through college as a waitress and a nanny, and ended up with only $500 worth of debt when I graduated. So it was possible at that time. I'm not sure right now if that's possible. I lived in Rochester Hills for 25 years. My late husband and I purchased a home in Port Austin in 2001 where we plan to retire. Unfortunately, I'm there by myself. I retired last year. I have extended family and friends all over the Huron County area. I probably am related to half of them. I have a 12-year retail career, so I know what it's like to work under extensive regulation that interferes with getting the job done. Retail was not exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, so I changed directions. I began working for some reason with the unemployment insurance system in Michigan. And I've worked with it for the last 23 years. I know everything just about there is to know with the unemployment system in Michigan. As an executive director for 10 years for an employer organization representing employers' needs, and an advocacy voice in Lansing, and a watchdog over the unemployment agency. I was appointed in 2006 to the Michigan Employment Security Board of Review and spent 5 years there. And then went into the unemployment agency as project manager. Kurt Damrow mentioned in 2011 all the reform bills. One very big reform bill was the unemployment reform bill, which I had personal hands in. I suggested amendments. One of them that was included that saved employers around 50,000 responses to determinations throughout Michigan, which was a huge savings. I tried to get that in 2002, but I didn't make it. For some reason, I wasn't able to get it in, but I did fight for it this time a little bit harder. I'm running for office because I want to use my business, advocacy, and legislative experience to improve the quality of life for the people of this district. I'm a strong conservative, and I support a smaller, nimble government. With term limits in place, this job requires someone that's ready to hit the ground running. And I have worked with both Republicans and Democrats to get the job done. Let's see if I forgot anything. A couple of things that I will support is the right to farm. This district is very, very big on farming and tourism. And we need to come up with something with an agritourism and figure out how to get the kids up here to see where food comes from. Living in the city, I have seen so many kids and talked to adults that have no clue where food comes from. They just think it appears in the grocery store. We need more adequate infrastructure to expand some of the businesses that need to, for manufacturing, as well as some of the big grain elevators that cannot get enough natural gas up here to dry their bins. Our education system, the Common Core, I'm still a little bit sitting out on the fence on this one. A lot of it has to do with the curriculum that is going to be implemented locally. If the teachers do not pick the correct supplemental resources for their classes, we could have some issues there. I'm still out on the fence with that one. I do support the idea of a part-time legislature, and I don't think Senator Green might not like me saying this, but the legislature, the House, I don't know about the Senate, but the House is only going to be in session, according to their calendars, for 93 days this year. So we have a little bit of work to do in that area. But that's a little bit about me, and there's some information on the table with a little more detail. I'd like to get to know this area a whole lot better, and I plan to be working Tuscola primarily. And I look forward to meeting you on the campaign trail, and I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Next we have Tom Wassel.
Hello, I'm married. I have 2 boys, 2 granddaughters, and I have a grandson on the way. Me and my wife are former foster parents. I have 27 years of experience in law enforcement, 15 years experience in the fire service. I've held the position of police chief in 2 communities and fire marshal in another. I've been elected as a village trustee, and I'm currently holding the position as village president of Fairgrove. In Michigan, I've owned and operated several successful businesses. One was a computer consulting business. I ran that up until the point where my son became more knowledgeable than me, and that was at the age of 12. He is now continuously still running that. He's almost 30 years old. Currently, we have representatives in Lansing who'd rather govern our behaviors instead of control over the government. As a result, state government continues to grow at the expense of the taxpayers. Instead of the government cutting expenses, it continues to look for taxing schemes to pay for an out-of-control government. When I was working for the state of Michigan, I was sitting there with my director, and we were discussing about how we could be more efficient. And I said, you know what, there's this group called the Medical Waste Division. There's about 3 or 4 of them in the state, and they effectively regulate the whole state. And if we did that, we'd be much more efficient and we'd save money. And he looked at me and goes, you know what, Tom, that's a good idea, but we don't want to work ourselves out of a job. And that's what it is in state government. It's not about providing the government a service. It's about a process of keeping employment. Additionally, we have people in Lansing who clearly do not understand their role between state government and federal government. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking to a lot of legislators who were running for office at that time, and I asked them, if Obamacare comes into play with the federal government, what are you going to do as my representative? And just about every one of them said, that's federal government. That's not my role as a state. And I said, wait a minute, it is your role. In fact, our founders had made it very clear. Alexander Hamilton in 1788 in the Federalist Papers said that state government would clearly retain all their rights and sovereignty which they had before. Sovereignty, what does that mean for Michigan? It means that Michigan is a sovereign government in itself, separate from anything else. Michigan became a state, and then they decided to join the Union. Currently, we have 16 different states in this country that are not members of the Union, Puerto Rico being one of them. When Hawaii was bombed, it wasn't a member of the Union. It was just a territory of America. So we are a sovereign country in itself. Also, Hamilton said during the ratification of the convention in New York in 1788, he said, this balance between national and state government forms a double security to the people. If one encroaches on their rights, they will find a powerful protection in the other. Indeed, they will both be prevented from overpassing their constitutional limits by a certain rivalship that exists between both of them. Our founders made it clear. We as a state and our legislators have the power to protect us from an over-aggressive federal government. And if I got elected, I would advocate for states' rights, and I would promote and deliver a conservative message that we should legislate over the government and not control over the people. I want to close with this. I'd be honored to represent this district, and I need your support. Thank you.
And our last candidate is Jim Wenzel.
Last is first, and the first is last. If I was sitting out there in the audience today, I'd want to know who Jim Wenzel is, what he stands for, and what type of character he possesses, along with what skills he would bring to the office of state representative, and why he would consider running. First, I'm a family man. I met my wife Rita at Olivet College. We were married in 1976. We have 4 children. They're all adult children. 3 of our children graduated from Central Michigan University. 1 attended Oakland University. Our youngest daughter right now is currently a master's student. Should be graduating hopefully this spring with an MA in psychology. I have a degree from Olivet College, a master's in administration from Central Michigan University. I grew up in Chelsea, Michigan. I'm a retired superintendent from the Bad Schools, and I've been working for a public finance company since retiring. I'm licensed to sell stocks, bonds, but my role in the company is to work with schools to finance bond issues and or to refinance existing bond issues. To get that kind of experience, I had to pass a lot of tests and do a lot of training, and I know how the economy works in the country and the state and those types of things. It's a very good asset. We've worked with Mayville, Kingston, Caseville, Marlette, and Bad schools in the area, but I also work with schools across the state of Michigan. And again, I know how the stock market and all these markets work and what makes them run, and the Fed and all those types of things. I believe one of my greatest strengths is the positions I've held over the years. I worked on a farm, a gas station, as a marine mechanic, as a test driver mechanic for Chrysler Proving Grounds. I was going into engineering when I was doing that. That started out as a summer job and it looked like it was going to turn into a career. So I was going to Olivet College as a political science major. I've always been interested in government and how it works. But after the downturn at Chrysler, I went back the next year, and that offer to go to U of M and engineering school was off the table. And so I decided to go back to Olivet and pursue, I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. And so I changed my majors and minors around. I wish I would have gotten a math major because I'm very good at mathematics, but I ended up being, I switched to political science and social studies, and I wanted to coach, so I became a physical education degree too, along with that. Unfortunately, when I graduated, there wasn't any teaching positions out there. And so I went into the world of work, and it was with John Hancock Insurance. I worked for Hancock for a couple of years until I found a teaching job. I knew that my teaching job was going to be a whole lot less money, but I didn't realize I was going to go, and for you older folks, you'll understand this, you younger ones, you may not. I went from making $20,000+ a year, which doesn't sound like a lot of money today, with a health club and all sorts of benefits, to $9,000 a year, and with a little bit better insurance as a teacher and a coach. I taught world history, government, math, and physical education. And government was state and local and the federal government, each in one semester. I've been a business manager for a school district, an athletic director, a special education designee, principal, and superintendent. I was also a deputy sheriff of Marine Division a couple summers when I was assistant principal down in the Centerville area. I also had my own computer-related business. I did that until the market on the computers went so that I couldn't make any money selling them anymore, so I got out of that and just did repair and consulting after that. Our family has lived in both Tuscola and Huron counties. I'm currently resident of Bad Axe, but for a time we lived in Mayville when I was a high school principal there. What do I support? Creation and retention of good paying jobs with benefits. Agriculture, the right to farm, a strategic long-term plan to address our deteriorating road system, adequate funding along with practical reforms to improve our schools and return to local control of our schools. I'm not a big fan of the Common Core as written and the implications that's there. With the education, big schools, small schools, they're different. We can't do the same things and expect the same results. A state budget that clearly supports our priorities. I support small business, reduced taxes, reduction or elimination of Michigan's tax on retirement savings, the right to life, the citizen's right to own and bear arms along with sportsmen's rights, enhanced coordination, support, and funding for centers and programs that provide services for our senior citizens and our veterans. I support the arts. What I do not support, increased taxes, government interference, we need more local control, the current health care reform, which is commonly referred to as Obamacare, the abuse of social service programs intended to those in need, legislation not supported by the majority of the constituents of the 84th District. And I also have personal experience with Obamacare. Two of my children, insurance doubled, and their deductible doubled with Obamacare. I've been civic-minded and giving back to the community. I've been in a Lions Club, a Sunday school teacher, a youth group leader, a chairperson of the finance committee for a church. I'm staff pastor parish relations committee, church council, served as president of a local men's group. A few years ago, I was president of Bad Axe Rotary, and I'm a Paul Harris Fellow. I'm currently the president of the Huron County Gideon Camp, and I'm also a qualified Gideon church speaker. I've served on many boards, from being on the National Board of Directors for the Council of Standards of International Educational Travel, the Board of Incorporators, along with the Foundation Board for the Huron Medical Center. I'm currently on the Board of Directors for the Michigan Rural Healthcare Preservation. We take over hospitals instead of the large conglomerates taking them over. closing them down and shutting down services for the rural areas. One of the hospitals in the area that we manage is Deckerville. And I was also on the board of directors of the School Equity Caucus. I'm an avid fisherman and hunter growing up, and I always go fishing each summer. I'm a member of the National Rifle Association, Coalition of Michigan Gun Owners, and finally, why am I running? I'm running for the same reasons I got to become an educator. I'm running for our children and our future. I encourage your support. I believe our economy is still fragile, and there's a lot of things we need to get done. We've got a good start, but we need to continue that. I'd like to introduce Jake Parcell, who's going to be working on our campaign. He's a soon-to-be Saginaw Valley graduate, along with Ashley Stone, who's going to be an intern on our campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to be opening up the floor for questions. First of all, I would ask everyone to show respect to all of them sitting up here. They've taken the time today to come and share their views with us. Please don't be attacked, and let's do everything in a respectful way. Questions can be asked singly of a candidate, but I want to let the candidates know also that you are allowed to answer that question even though it's asked of just one candidate. But I just ask everyone, please be respectful to everyone sitting up here. I've been in this position, it's not an easy thing to do. Okay, any question?
I don't know if I need that or not. Hello, I'm Lou Small, but I'm going to be a candidate for Vassar School Board this coming fall. I have a question that I'd like to ask of each of the candidates regarding what is your position on the attempted federal usurpation of local school district curriculum through their Common Core initiative and Smart Balance testing program that they're trying to shove down our throats.
I think Common Core needs to be stopped completely and eliminated without any hesitation.
I think that we need to have local control and over our education. It's not part of the Constitution for the federal government to be involved in education at all. I think we need to develop our statewide tests in the state, not the federal government.
Many years ago, the federal government got involved with education. The goal was to increase test scores. The last time I checked, test scores have not increased. I personally think that we and local unit understand what's best for our children, and I think that when we have local control, we also would have local ability to change what's going on so that our students could learn more and be better educated. I think, again, as I stated, we need to start working on educating kids out of high school so that they're ready to enter the job market. For me, individually, it took me 10 years to get my bachelor's degree. I did a whole lot of jobs between when I became out of high school until I became a doctor at 32 years of age. So it's a long process, and we need to help kids learn how to make their own way through that process. So I'm not a big fan of federal government telling local or state governments, as far as that goes, telling local governments how to educate our children.
All right, Lou, good question, and I strongly oppose the Common Core. I've opposed it when it was first introduced, and I will continue to oppose it, asking that we repeal that or bring it back and destroy it in any way we can. We need to get back to local control. Why do we have school boards in the first place? They're not just there to do the budget, they're also there to hear from the community and what they want to teach their students in their area. This federal requirement, anytime you accept a federal requirement, a lot of times it's pushed with money, so there are strings attached. There's always grant dollars involved, there's already federal funding involved, and a lot of times that's how these programs get pushed. It's not a matter of the quality of the program, and this is one of those poor quality programs. It's also that it was required to be accepted in order to get federal grant funding. And that has to stop. We have to quit tying these programs to whether or not a state will get money for their schools. So to keep it short, I strongly oppose it, and I hope someday that we can get rid of Common Core and give the school boards and the local administrations the opportunity to create and have some participation in their local curriculum.
Well, as I stated earlier, I'm not really a fan of, not a fan of Common Core. Actually, I'm not a fan of any of the federal government coming down on and interfering with the local schools. If you remember back in the 90s, late 90s, Goals 2000. And then after that, it was No Child Left Behind. And then Race to the Top, and now there's Common Core. When are we ever going to let our local schools take the initiative, like when we were kids, and teach the kids how to get the kids to learn at the way they can learn, and the teachers know how to teach instead of teaching to test day in and day out. The kids aren't learning, being taught to a test, and they just get frustrated. I know my son was in school during the time period of the Goals 2000, and one of the reading issue, the way they were teaching reading, if anybody remembers the look-say method, instead of phonics. I taught my son how to read at the end of second grade because he could not read. I bought the Hooked on Phonics and he was reading in a month or so. But too many times we're just ending up with these newfangled teaching methods in the schools, and the teachers can't teach the way they want to teach. So with the Common Core, what's scary about it is the type of literature and the different background knowledge in the areas that they need, that the teachers are going to be teaching. And if they don't choose the right background information, resource information, we're going to have nothing but climate change being taught in schools instead of what's really happening that there isn't really climate change. Climate is always changing. And it's going to be things like that are coming directly from the government. And so I don't like all the newfangled issues or ways that they're teaching the kids, and I'd really like to see the teachers teach the way the kids need to learn. Thank you.
Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education. Education from that point on has continued to regress and gotten worse. A diverse educational process is really key to a successful educational process. And if Vassar can work on a program and Kingston work on another program, eventually good programs will start surfacing. And if Vassar has a good program that works very well, then Kingston may look at that and say, you know what, we want to do what Vassar did. But if we have one way of doing something, if it fails, it all fails. So diversity is key for the state of Michigan on education.
Being last, some of the points that I've already heard, I certainly support. But Lou, I'm not a fan of Common Core. I wasn't a fan from the beginning. What they were talking about, I lived. 36 years in education. Going back to some of the comments, I know what it takes to educate children. I've done it all my life, and the schools that I've worked at have had amazingly good results. From Mayville, we started with our students at an 18 average on the ACT, and that's not when they all had to take it. When I left there, and 6 years later, that score was up to 23. And more kids are taking it. We also have more kids using the tech center. One of the initiatives that I started in this county as a principal of Mayville was a county-wide curriculum, so that we have many students going from one school to the next. We wanted to make sure we somewhat aligned our curriculum. I don't know if they still do that down here or not, but I was a leader in that, and then that spread up to Huron County, and we got the job done locally, and I think that's where it needs to stay. But the key to good schools is good quality teachers and administrators that know what to do and how to do it to create that diversity for the students that they need. Not everybody needs a college education. Some great jobs are out there that 1 or 2 year or just a good technical school would work, or skill center. We need to take a look at all of our education, make sure we properly fund it so that the kids and the teachers have the resources that we need.
I'd just like to ask 2 quick yes and no questions to follow up with that. As the federal government continues to expand the requirements that it attaches to our Title I and other title dollars, I understand that Common Core and the testing that goes with it will eventually be tied to those title funds. I'm wondering if you guys would support legislation to appropriate state funds to schools to supplement the federal funds if we were to opt out of the federal funding, so that we would be not nearly as incentived to take that federal money and all of the crap that comes along with it. The other thing is, would you introduce legislation to prohibit federal employees in our schools? We currently have Michigan schools who have federal employees on U.S. Department of Education payroll, known as principal ambassadors. I'm wondering if we, in some of our schools, I'm wondering if we would have a state that would prohibit that. Thank you.
To start this off and to be fair, we're going to start down on this end. That way there's fairness where it's not always the same person answering first.
I'm always upset that they send so much money to the schools with so many strings attached, both at the state and federal level. Just take an example of Detroit Public Schools. They would get X number of dollars, and it was huge for federal dollars. And it was a big waste. Usually they had to send money back. And the same thing with all these urban schools that qualified for all this type of money. So they would go out and have lavish meals and everything else just to try to spend the money when it really should have been funneled right to where it belonged, the classroom. So yeah, I would support no strings attached. If we have to do things that is not right for our school students in the state of Michigan, but the dollars are out there, if you can't circumvent the money, then we need to find a way to replace it with state funding.
Yeah, I would agree with providing state funds for education, and that could be done, and you'd have to streamline state government first. I mean, because you'd have to come up with the funds. And I think you could do that if you aggressively streamline state government, you could promote education with state funds.
I would agree that the federal dollars, there's too much of it coming into the local school districts with its strings attached. And all of that money all requires reporting done with it. And so schools then have to hire somebody to just do grant writing and reporting and jumping through all those hoops. Yes, I would support legislation to supplant the Michigan funds with federal dollars if necessary. But I really do not like the federal dollars in the local schools, and that way the feds can tell you how to run your school district.
Jeff, that's an excellent question. A lot of people don't know that there are federal employees involved with some of these school systems. But to answer exactly how you wanted it, yes and yes.
Thank you.
I believe that in all phases of government, it seems like the federal government, if they're going to give you something, they're going to want something back in return. We see this hugely in healthcare and education. And I often tie both education and healthcare together because it seems like everybody's trying to tell everybody else what to do, but nobody does the job. You know, everybody wants the teacher to teach correctly, but nobody teaches. So the answer to your question is, if we can wean ourselves off of federal dollars, I think that's an absolutely fantastic thing. I think it'd be a good idea for us to wean ourselves off of state dollars as well. And again, bring that control back to the local government. I think our parents, our school boards know much better about how to educate our children, along with our superintendents and principals. So that's...
Yes and yes.
To say yes is and then no. Number one, the question I would ask is, do we need the title programs, period, funded by the federal government or the state? And if we don't need them, eliminate them, period. Don't replace them with state dollars, eliminate the program. That would be my first option. Secondarily, with a federal employee working in the state, I think that's up to a local district, not the state, to tell you that yes or no. If it's no strings attached, there may be no harm, no foul. If there are strings attached, absolutely not. We know that strings come with dollars and with people. That's got to stop. Local control needs to be put back in place in the school district 100%.
Okay.
My name is Anna Kleinsmith, I live in Vassar Township and a lifelong Michigan resident. There is an initiative, a petition, that was trying to amend the Constitution of Michigan for greater transparency and citizen input to the legislature, limits the total time and the speed at which the legislature can adopt legislation and adjust the compensation for members of the legislation. If this is, now signatures are collected and it will be on the ballot for the November. It would go into effect. And I wonder what your opinions are about limiting this, and what would you do if you are elected and you have to work under that? I would like your opinion on that, please.
Okay, we'll start with Dan Grimshaw on that one.
Well, first of all, if that's the law that you live under, that's the law you live under. If it becomes law, then you simply adapt and life moves on. I don't know enough about the ballot proposal or what the long-term ramifications are to have a position on at this point. I know that people point to Texas as one of the states that has a part-time legislature, and without getting into the detail, I don't know how their committees work and if they meet in session or not when they're not in session, none of those things, and there are no answers to this at this point. The biggest concern I do have is in administrative rules. If an administrative rule has to be reviewed within a time limit, as I believe it does right now for the legislature to stop it, if you don't have a legislature in position, do you want the state of Michigan administrative people making rules that go in automatically into effect for a two-year period or so before it can be reviewed? That would be my first fear. We do not want the DEQ making rules that you have to live with and then try to undo 2 years later. That's the danger. Unless you're going to limit administrative rules and all of the administrative side of government as well, with that same proposal, all you're doing is tying the hands of the legislature to do their job and effectively govern and represent you at the state level. And I don't know that I don't think we want that. So I think we have to look at the double-edged sword that this is. It's not just a simple yes or no answer.
Anna, the simple answer is yes, I support the initiative. When I was asked a couple weeks ago when I was at the Tuscola County meeting, I said I supported a part-time legislature. I wasn't sure about this proposal. Since then, I've done my homework. I've read the entire proposal, not only as written on the petitions, but as what would go into the Constitution. And I think that the safeguards are there with the committee that would allow for administrative rules to be suspended until the end of the next legislative session so that the legislature themselves can address that rule. So that was one of my concerns, and I'm glad to see that it was addressed in there. There are a couple of small issues in there that I disagree with, but they're not big enough issues that I would say I'm not going to vote for it. So yes, I support the issue, and it'll have my vote in November.
I have not researched this enough to form a formal opinion. I do have some opinions about it, however. Number one, I would be concerned with part-time legislature that only wealthy people could run for legislature. If you have a job that most folks, if they have a job and they go to the legislature, they do that job as their job. Where and I think that some of the legislature only being in session for 90 days is a little misleading. I think Mike Green would tell you, as he's here right now, legislature's not in session, but he's here. So that's part of his job. So there are things that also are required of legislators besides just going to the State House and working. They have to interface with folks in the community as well. And the other biggest thing that I'm concerned about at this point, and when I hear more about it, I can make a more clarified decision. But if you have a 30-year-old guy that has 4 kids, he can't become a legislator if he has to work full-time in his community and part-time in the legislature. I think that that's a concerning issue. Again, I'm not sure that that's a deal breaker, but for me, I would actually probably do much better because I could protect my license to practice. and I could do significantly better with a part-time legislature, but I don't know, so that's the best thing for the state of Michigan.
Right, there is a lot to this bill, a lot to the ballot proposal, and I've commented very openly on this. I know, having been there, the amount of time that it takes. Senator Green knows that, Representative Daley knows that the time that you're in Lansing, that you see the legislators in session is a very small portion of the job. The behind-the-scenes work group meetings, committee meetings, traveling the state to be parts of your committee, and traveling just the district alone. From one end of this district in the 84th House, it's about an hour drive from one tip to the other tip. And sometimes you're just driving that for a 15-minute meeting. And that could be with the township, 10 to 15 minutes to just speak for a little bit. It takes a lot of time to do the job if you're going to do the job right. At first I did support this strongly when I ran for office. And because I was basing it on the response that we were getting from legislators that we have in office in our House seat. And I thought, well, boy, you could really do this job in probably a couple hours a week. Until I got there and I found out just how much you could do and how much you could work for the people of your district. As a state house rep, you're representing 80,000 people. As a senator, I believe it's around 300,000 people. That's one person, one voice in Lansing to defend and help you. And the calls that we would receive, you know, if government is not your legislature, government is really the department and agencies that like to control everything as much as they can, not with the laws that are established, but with policy. So I look at the legislator being there as your voice, representing you back in the district in Lansing, and not representing Lansing back to the district. And like the doctor said here, I believe that if we do go to a part-time legislator, using the excuse that, well, other states have it, well, a lot of other people do other things, that's not good enough for us to do it. You know, you just don't do those things personally. But I really feel that we will get ourselves in a position where big money and old money and that person off the street will not have the opportunity to run. And remember, you're giving up, if you give up 2 years or 4 years or 6 years out of your life, a lot of times you're stepping out of your employed position. It's difficult. So, you know, there's some things I do like about the ballot proposal, there's other things that I don't like about it. But you know what, regardless of what happens and what's passed, I would be willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I'm sure many of you have worked at jobs where you felt you weren't paid enough, or you didn't get enough hours, but you know what, once you accept the job, regardless of what the pay, regardless of what the hours are, and I've seen that from the military, trust me, after 60 and 70 hours a week on alert operations, you do the job that you're hired to do. Thank you.
I would support a part-time legislature, but I'm not sure this is, I don't know enough, I haven't done enough research on this one yet. Not sure if 60 days is quite enough time to be in session, but we do have a lot of bills that come through that probably don't necessarily need to be taken up year after, or every session. At the end of it, as it is at the end of the session, all of those introduced bills die off after the second year of the session. Like coming up at December 31st of 2014, any bill that hasn't been enacted or any action on them, everything dies and has to start all over again. So in January there'll be a flurry of bills going back in again. And but one of the good things with the part-time legislature, only necessary legislation will be worked on. We won't be so concerned about naming roads or you know, naming a fish or something. Just some of the inconsequential bills that are introduced year after year. But like I said, I do support the part-time legislature. Only 4 states don't do it in the country, so there's got to be a way that Michigan can do something in a part-time nature. Thank you.
I read it over, and as it's written currently, I do not support it. If you don't understand how it's going to impact the Michigan Constitution, if you don't understand what authority it's going to give a small group of people, and what's going to happen when the legislative body is not in session, and what is a small group of people going to be doing with that power, if you don't understand that, then you shouldn't be changing the Michigan Constitution. Like anything else, somebody called me and says, you need to get on board with this. And they said, you know what, if you get elected and it's a part-time legislative body, there will be a business out there that want to hire you. And what's going to happen is your legislative body is going to become an arm of business. So you need a little caution in moving in this direction.
I can certainly understand the folks wanting to address what's going on and why they would think that this is happening. I think some of our other candidates have hit on it, but when we have legislation, I think it's being called roadkill for fast food out there. You know, I haven't read all that, so I'm sure there's something more into it, but the long and short of it, it looks like, just like everybody's been saying, is we've got a lot of people out there wanting to get their names on bills that really don't need to happen. And that's why people are pushing these types of things, is to cut that crap out. And I don't think we ought to be doing that. A lot of people are looking for their next job when you run. And so they got to have their name out there. They have to sponsor a lot of stuff. Their aides are pushing it. You know, you can stand these people up and you should put, you know, just like the race car drivers, have all the emblems of all their sponsors. When I go to Lansing, I'm not going to have that. It'll be Jim Wenzel representing the people of the 84th District.
Another question? I should have read it. Knowing what Senator Green is introducing as far as legislation in the Senate, just real quickly, what do you think of his call to the federal government, Senate Joint Resolution 5, to call for an Article 5 convention to require a balanced federal budget? And I'm also a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. What do you think of Senate Bill 789, which would eliminate county gun boards?
We'll start with Jim Wenzel.
The first one was the
Balanced budget.
It's long overdue. I mean, everybody has to balance their budget from, you know, if you don't, we go bankrupt, and we're basically a bankrupt nation right now, owned by the Chinese. So, yes, it's long overdue, and thanks, Mike, for taking that initiative and representing Michigan in that. The second one was?
The Senate Bill 789, elimination of the county gun boards.
Yes. I'm not sure on I've got to talk to our sheriff and see what they think. My problem with that, it possibly could be, is I have no problem with gun ownership, but the guns have to be in the right people's hands. And I don't know if taking that away and expediting the process will stop some of the violence that's out there with people that have guns that have mental issues. I'm not sure how that's going to work yet. I'm going to have to look at that, because I certainly don't want to infringe on anybody's right to own guns if they are properly licensed. And at this point in time, I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I support the amendment, or the amendment to Article 5 process, because it's really key to give the state of Michigan back a little bit more control. Because the federal government is always overtaxing us, giving the money to us in a way that they can control the states. So if they have a balanced budget, they're going to be limited on what they can balance it, budget themselves for. As far as the gun boards, I've been involved in law enforcement for 27 years. I don't have a problem with eliminating the gun boards at the county level. There are provisions out there as a police officer, if you're dealing with somebody who's having some mental issues, the police department can seize those guns for a period of time until they can make a determination if those guns go back. So there are safety nets already out there for that process. So I support that.
I definitely support the initiative of Article 5 on the balanced budget. That's way overdue. Government is spending our great-grandchildren's money right now, and that's got to stop. And the only way that it will stop is if the country rises up to make it stop. As for the gun boards, I'm not real familiar exactly what gun boards do anymore, but I definitely am not opposed to people owning guns as long as they are licensed and trained, and they know how to handle the gun. I grew up in a family of hunters and gun-carrying people that know how to use them. And my brother actually has showed me how to, I've learned a little bit about handling a rifle for hunting myself. Haven't shot anything yet, but it's kind of a powerful feeling. But I will research that, and I don't probably have any opposition to elimination of them, because there's probably overlap somewhere that can pick up that duty.
It seems almost a shame that we have to have state legislation calling for the federal government to balance their budget.
I agree.
In 2011, we inherited a budget from Governor Granholm that was $1 billion in the hole. We balanced that budget in 1 year. We turned things around with the finances. We included transparency. All these things that the federal government doesn't do. But we have to present legislation or resolutions from the state of Michigan asking for Congress to do the same thing. So yes, I strongly support what Senator Green is presenting here, and I believe he has very good support in the House and Senate. I can't imagine someone not supporting the call for a balanced budget.
You won't even have to vote on it.
Thank you very much. So, you know, it's a shame that it has to come to that. And, you know, it's like a lot of things that we still send to Washington. We sent stuff 4 years ago about the Asian carp and protecting the Great Lakes, and we still have to send resolutions and legislation and requests every year to the federal government. As far as the gun boards, Senator Green introduced a number of very good Second Amendment bills that went through in 2011-12 and continues to do so. Our Second Amendment rights have been trampled. As far as having the gun board, I did get to sit on some of the work groups as we heard testimony of these people that were refused, and they were good people in the community. They didn't have felonies. They had no issues, but there were some political issues, and all too many times that they were denied the opportunity for their Second Amendment rights at a local level. So yes, I do support this revised legislation to defend your Second Amendment rights.
I'll take the last first. I am not familiar with Senator Green's proposal, but I do support the right for every individual to own their own guns. If somebody wants to tell me that I have to register my guns, I don't have any guns because they'll be buried in my backyard. I think that we, what happens in Michigan may not be the same thing that happens in Massachusetts or what happens in Rhode Island. But we have the right to manage our own affairs in the state of Michigan, and I think that if Senator Green has looked at this and thought that local gun boards are not essential, again, I think that's what we should be doing. We should be cutting non-essential government intervention in our lives. So I would support that, but I haven't researched it, so I just
We'll give you the info.
We'll do that one. The second thing about the government balancing the budget, gosh, I've been a business owner for the better part of my life. Had to balance my budget all the time. Can't pay people what I don't have. I have to pay for health insurance because we have health insurance. We got to pay for that. So we do the best we can with what we do, what we have. The state's done a very good job, I think, of reining that in, and I think that we're in a good position there. There's a lot of administrative overload that still is available that could be trickled down or not sent to begin with and dealt with locally. So yes, I think the federal government should be required to balance their budget. They should also be required to send a budget at least every year, and that even is a problem as I understand it. There are always going to be difficult times when there are times of war, when certain things are going to happen, and we're going to maybe have to go outside that budget to a degree. Happens in our world as well. We go into debt. But you have to have responsible plans on how to deal with those issues. And yes, I support this initiative. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Mike for sponsoring that initiative and being willing to represent Michigan when that convention finally called. So yes, I do support the balanced budget. As a school board member, we had to balance our budget. We had to grow our fund equity so that we could deal with those tough times when they came, and we did that. As a business owner of a restaurant for 7 years, we had to balance our budget or go out of business. And we did that, and sometimes it wasn't easy in the economy that Governor Granholm provided for us here in Michigan. So yes, I support the balanced budget amendment. As far as the elimination of county gun boards, I think all gun boards should be eliminated. We have a U.S. Constitution that provides for us to have a right to bear arms, and there should be no government interference at any level preventing us from bearing those arms.
As far as the constitutional amendment, I think it is long overdue, and I think the state needs to step up to the plate additionally and say no more acceptance of federal funds for every time they want a bailout. That's the other problem that goes hand in hand with the federal government's debt. We have 50 states plus territories that are stepping up saying we need more money from the federal government to help us because we can't balance our budget, and that's got to stop. I think we need to take leadership in that as well. As far as gun boards, there is no question the Constitution says we have a right to keep and bear arms. And I truly believe the federal government, the Supreme Court is ruling in that regard about the right to bear arms. And I don't see anywhere that it says you need to have a license to bear an arm, or that the government has the right to say you are not the right person to bear an arm, we don't like you. We would be very appalled if that was the way we determined who voted. I think there was a major revolt in our civil rights issues over who voted because we didn't think we should put any kind of parameters on it. Well, this is also a right that's a constitutional provision. And I think we need to eliminate gun boards, period. And just do away with it altogether. Prove that I don't have the right to have the gun, take me to court. Prove I'm mentally incompetent after the fact. I mean, that's just, you have to do that. We can't presuppose someone's mentally incompetent, and that's what the premise is. Or they're automatically criminal. We cannot make those presumptions. We have to stop that.
Let me say something. You're going to get a ton of questionnaires about gun issues. And get up to speed, because you're going to need to know that before you fill those questionnaires out. If you got any questions, please call my office and we'll help you through it. Send you information.
Okay, we have to wrap up the questioning. We have had the candidate Alan Hardwick from the 5th District Congressional just show up. We did promise him a few minutes because he's asking for help on his campaign. I want to ask you all to give a round of applause for our candidates.
Hi, again, my name is Alan Hardwick. I'm running for 5th Congressional District against Dan Kilby. I don't know if anybody's been to my website or not. There's more information on there. I was actually kind of thinking this was going to be more of an informal get-together thing. But basically, there's a lot of things going on in government that people complain about, good Christian people, good Republicans complain about. But unfortunately, not many people want to step forward and do something about it. And that's a problem that we're running across. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I've been running my own business for 17 years. I started my business because of the economy at the time. I was actually in a car accident, and where I was living, the economy wasn't that great. So I had to create my own economy. And everything I've known about what I do, which is computer repair and website design, I've learned on my own. What we need to do, I think, is take the skills that we have and use them to the best of our ability to make this country great again. And that's what we're having problems with right now in this nation, is that we have too much entitlement mentality, which has got to change. We have too much, I don't know, it's just all about me. And I think that started in the 70s, where it's all about me, all about me. And we've got to work together. If we're going to make this country great again, which we need to make this country great again, we need to work together. And it's going to take everybody. It's not going to take a presidential order, it's not going to take a congressional order, it's not going to take anything in the government. There is no government policy or law that's going to change this country. It's going to have to take each and every one of us to do it. And I think that as the government goes, they're too far reaching, and we need to limit their power. You were talking about that states need to make their own decisions, and townships and schools and school boards. Right now, the government thinks that they're the king of it all, and that their one shoe fits everybody's situation. And that's not what's happening. Every situation is different. And why do we have all the different governments and all the different places, governing bodies, if they're useless, if there's no way for them to do anything done, because we're stuck with government mandates, with federal government mandates. We need to have our own individuality. That's what this whole country's about, is individuality, coming together to make one great nation. So anyway, I'm going to be sitting back here, and I have a bio sheet if you want to take a look at it. I have a couple of websites, a Facebook site, a candidate website, and I'd like to get some petitions signed. If everybody would put their faith in me to try to make a difference. And I think that's what we need to do, is just, not one person can do it. It's going to take everybody to make a difference. So, any questions?
You're looking for volunteers too to get involved in circulating petitions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tuscola doesn't have a very large part of our county in the 5th Congressional District, but Vassar area and a little bit of the south part of the county is in the 5th Congressional District. So if anybody is interested in helping Alan, as far as his website and all the candidates' websites, if we don't already have a link on thumbgop.org, get us your website information. We've got links on there to the candidate websites as well.
Okay. I'm actually staying in Davison. I'm probably going to be there till at least the 20th, 21st. We have up until the 22nd, but I don't want to push it to the deadline. I'd like to run under the Republican ticket, but unfortunately, if I don't get enough signatures, I'm probably going to have to go under the independent ticket because I get a longer timeline to do it. But the only problem I have with that is I find that most independents tend to lean left, and I don't know if I can pull that off.
Good for you. And you need 1,500 signatures, is that correct?
No, we need, Republicans Republican or Democrat needs to have 1,000 to 2,000 signatures, but the Michigan GOP says that they want me to set a goal at 1,250.
Okay.
So, and I've got to get an accurate map because nobody seems to have an accurate map of what the 5th district is.
Go on our website. It's on there. You're the vote tab, yeah.
Okay. I don't even think Dan Kilby has a map on there. He doesn't. No. So, we've got to be very cautious because we don't want to have the signatures thrown out because we're not in our district.
And we're going to hear very briefly from Jeff Phillips. He's also jumped in the race for the 10th Congressional District. We're not in the 10th now, so we didn't have Jeff on the agenda, but I think he's also looking for help gathering signatures.
I'm just going to be very brief. I'll echo most of what he just said here. I agree with most of what I've heard today. We had a candidate, Bullard, who dropped out of the race for 10th Congressional District just 20 days before the filing deadline. And it dawned on me that we were going to have Candace Miller, who voted to keep the NSA spying on all of our phone calls, voted to keep funding the advertising of our food stamps programs and advertising campaigns inside downtown Mexico City, voted to fund Obamacare, voted to fund all kinds of nonsense. So with a Freedom Works score of only 49% of the time she votes with the Constitution, I give that an F. And I think that it's absolutely imperative that we have at least someone on the ballot to challenge her in the Republican primary. I know this is a David and Goliath race, but in the 24 hours that followed Bullard's dropping out of that race, we had a whole slew of phone calls going about trying to find another candidate. Frankly, I wish anyone in this room would have done so. But we did not have someone step forward, so I said, well, I will put my name on the ballot and I will do the best effort that I can. And I would appreciate your help if you are in 10th District to sign my nominating petition and help us gather the signatures. Right now, we're about a quarter of the way towards our goal. And if we can get that by April 22nd, we will at least have a choice this August 5th. Thank you very much.
Everyone, if you'd like to ask.
I'm not in the 10th district, but I thank you. At least you will raise issues that she will have to address and will be on record for.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have all the candidates here. If there's any other questions you'd like to ask them, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to stay a little bit and answer your questions. And also, lots of goodies still on the table now. Please help yourself.
I'd also like to thank our county commissioner from this area, Matthew Beerline. We didn't recognize him earlier. We're bringing the youngest to come.
I gotta tell a panel, you don't believe in Nancy Pelosi, you gotta pass the bill to see what's in it.
And then very briefly, we're going to hear from Nick Rugy from Lieutenant Governor Kelly's campaign. He's going to talk a little bit about what's coming out of Lansing from Lieutenant Governor.
Thanks, guys, for waiting around to hear me. I'll make this quick. Lisa asked me here to, I'm a notary, and we're trying to collect precinct delegate affidavits. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But first, I have a letter from the Lieutenant Governor that I'd like to read you. Dear Tuscola and Huron County GOP friends, just over 3 years ago, Governor Snyder and I were elected to reinvent our state. We have worked to take Michigan that had record unemployment and whose finances were a mess and put us on a path to economic recovery so that our children and grandchildren can make a life here. You, the grassroots base of our party, worked hard, knocked doors, made phone calls, texted friends, sent emails, made donations, and did what it took to change the direction of our state. The voters liked what we had to say and elected a Republican governor and a Republican legislature. You were an important part of that success. Once we took office, we immediately made tough decisions in order to begin to put Michigan on a path to recovery. Some of those decisions weren't popular, but they were necessary for economic recovery to take hold. Consider some of what we have accomplished together. We balanced the budget, delivered in record time with no accounting gimmicks, reduced the debt by billions, and added $900 million in savings to our rainy day fund, abolished the job-killing Michigan business tax, taking our state business tax rating from second worst in the nation to seventh best in the nation, eliminated over 1,500 burdensome state rules and regulations thus far, repealed the Michigan helmet law, passed the pro-life omnibus legislation to increase safety standards at abortion clinics, and put measures in place to help prevent coercive abortions. We also passed right to work. These accomplishments are producing real results. We now have one of the fastest growing economies in the nation. The private sector is creating jobs again, and our population is growing for the first time in over 8 years. We need a strong Republican Party in order to continue this success. Our achievements over the past 2 election cycles have been a complete team effort. Thank you for all you have done. We can do great things together. Remember what we have achieved in just the first 3 years. Just imagine what we can achieve in the next 5. I appreciate the work you have done and are doing, and I look forward to working with all of you to continue Michigan's reinvention. Sincerely, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley. So, as far as precinct delegates go, there's 15,000 open precinct delegate seats every 2 years, and 2/3 of those go unfilled. So what I'm trying to do is bring awareness to that. It's a very important position, but one that not a lot of people know about. It's a very minimal time commitment. The 2 things that we would ask you to do is attend the state convention. That's going to be August 14th, or the county convention, I'm sorry. And then the state convention, which is going to be in Novi, that's going to be later in August. And those are the 2 minimum things we'd ask you to do. Beyond that, we encourage you to get involved with the county party. But again, that's up to you. At the state convention, what you get an opportunity to do is vote for the lieutenant governor. That's where the lieutenant governor is elected. Then you also get a chance to vote for who you want the Republican Party to put on the ballot for Attorney General, Michigan Supreme Court Justice, University Regents, things like that. So it's a very important position within the party. If anyone's interested in becoming a delegate or has any questions or knows of anyone that wants to be a delegate, let me know. I have forms here today. I'm going to the courthouse right after this, so I can turn them in for you, or you can turn them in. And if you know of anyone that wants to be a precinct delegate, I can give you my card. I'll go to their house, notarize their form, anything like that. So, thank you.